Hello, welcome back. Nigel here with you, Nigel's Modelling Bench, and this is part 3 now of the build of this lovely little starter set. This is the Eurofighter Typhoon FGR.4 from Airfix. It's about £20, but you could probably find it cheaper elsewhere. Shop around, have a look, you'll find sales and stuff and points and reward points and stuff you can use. So in part 2 we actually looked at gluing the wings together, and as you will know if you haven't already seen any of the other parts, we are working away from the instructions, and what I'm trying to do is show you here, the newer modelers show you how to get around problems. Now we know there is a problem with this kit in the assembly that we've talked about in the parts 1 and 2 around the lower end. So Airfix are asking us to actually glue the upper wing to the lower wing and then glue that to the fuselage, do the same on the other side, and then bring it all together, which is a very unusual assembly sequence for a model which is made like this. Generally what you would do is put the fuselage halves together, glue the wing halves together, and then bring it up from underneath, which is exactly what I've done. So I've come away from the instructions to show you how to go about it. Now there's no need, you don't have to do this, you can go on and build it as per the instructions. Dotty, okay, where were we at? Dotty just accidentally managed to get hold of my airbrush tubing and pull the airbrush off the bench. Anyway, right, so basically yeah, you can carry on and build it out of the box as per the instructions if you want to, but you will have an issue with the seam here on the bottom because it has no alignment. So as you can see, I've used pieces of tabs, I've cut off the sprue to make kind of interlocking pegs so that it kind of interlocked. You know, this one was glued to this side, this one was glued to this side, this was, and then so that when you put them together they interlock, and then you get this situation. Now what I've done, I've decided to break away from the instruction, do it this way so that I can get to the inside and put something in there just to give it a little bit more strength. What I'm going to use is something called sprue goo. Now when I make sprue goo, I use plastic card, and I'll just show you a box. This is plastic card, this is a box of scraps. You can get it in all sorts of different thicknesses. Make sure if you are getting into modelling, you're buying this. A lot of people like to use Amazon these days. Be very, very careful because most of the stuff you'll see selling on Amazon from unheard of brands is ABS, and it won't work with your plastic cement. So the best thing you could do is buy sort of Plastruct, which is in an orange labelled bag, or you can get, what's the other company's name? I can't think of the name of the company. Oh dear, dear, dear. There we go. There's the manufacturers to look for. Evergreen, okay, which is an American company, or Plastruct, which I think is a UK company. Or are they American as well? I'm not sure. But when you get stuff from them, you can guarantee it's styrene. You look on, go and have a look now on Amazon, and you'll see it makes me laugh. It says, it'll say like styrene sheets, 0.5 millimeters, you know, 300 by 300 millimeters, the finest ABS. You like that's like saying, you know, cheese and tomato pizza, 300 mil diameter. You know, it's the finest joint of beef you'd ever get. It's just crazy. It will not work. So don't go buying ABS from your Amazon shop. Make sure you get the styrene. It's best to go around your model shops, and then you'll know what, you know, they know what they're selling. They know what you need. So, and always keep your scraps, never throw your scraps away. So basically what I do then is get a jar of Tamiya extra thin, as you can see I'm using here. Put a drop of that in the bottom, add some scrap styrene, and make up a sprue goo. You can also do it with sprue. So you can take the old sprues that we cut off the kit and threw away from part 2. You can chop them up. The smaller you chop them up, the better. So if you chop it into tiny little pieces, like so, sort of 2 millimeters long, it will dissolve a lot faster. And all you do is leave that in there to dissolve. You can see here's what I've made earlier from Hong Kong Models plastic. And I like to use Hong Kong because Hong Kong Models styrene is comparatively quite hard. So if you use ordinary styrene, when you come to sand it, it kind of, you can get a divot. So I like to use Hong Kong, but generally I use sprue goo. So what you end up with, if you leave it to settle, you got the lid glued on for a start. What you end up with is like a filler, okay, that you can use. And the way to set it, to get it so that it's good, you want it to just not string. All right, you can see I've got a bit of a dollop hanging off the bottom there, you can see. But if you pull it away and it all strings, and when you pull it away here, if it all strings out forever, you need to add some more extra thin. If, however, it doesn't string at all and it's like thick paint, add a bit more styrene. That's the sort of consistency I go for generally. Some people like it a bit thicker, some like it a bit thinner. And all I'm going to do is just take this and brush this into here. Be careful not to use too much, because if you use too much, what will happen is you'll end up with you can see now how I was saying earlier how the felt pen comes off. If you use too much, you may end up with a sink mark where it's all sort of damaged the styrene. So just don't use too much. But, you can see I'm just brushing it on here. It's like a thick coat of paint really. And what that'll do is penetrate the seam and just add a little bit of extra strength and just help it all stay together. Okay, so there you go. So that will not only fill any tiny gaps that are there, it will also sort of add like a bit of a buttress to the surface, and it will penetrate and it will all kind of meld into one. So we get a very nice strong joint, and then when we know that when we come in and start sanding and filling and stuff, it's not going to crack. Okay, so there you go. Now, if you follow the Airfix instructions, obviously you can't get in there to do that. And if you've added the tabs and still add the wings, and you still can't get in there to do that. So that's another one of the benefits of doing it this way. Right, so we need to leave that to dry now for a good couple of hours, otherwise if you touch it, it gets quite messy. So, if you remember, we've got the fuselage half, and as per the instructions, we have added the... Never goes to the page you want, does it? Ever. And it's always difficult to get to the page you want. Here you are. Bloody things. Right, so, looking on here, we've built up the cockpit, we've added the instrument panel, we've added the decal, we've placed the cockpit in there. I've also painted the inside of the cockpit walls with the black paint as provided with the kit. So now, without the wings, we're going to get the fuselage halves glued together. So, you can see on here we have a big seam across the top, and we have pins and holes to line up. We also have the tailplane and the rudder going to go together there. So what I'm going to do is we need to get the rudder and the tailplane glued together well, not the rudder and the tailplane, because the rudder is in one half, as you can see. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure we don't have any raised ejector pin marks. Now I don't know if you can see that, but here we have an ejector pin mark, and there's like a bit of a raised edge on it. So I'm just going to get my sanding stick and just go over that and make sure that when I sand it, I sand the whole area. Here we go, and now you can see that raised edge is gone. Do the same on here. We have an ejector pin mark here. We're going to make sure we don't have any raised edges on there, and now we don't. Just give that a very light sand and a very quick stroke over the surfaces that we're gluing together, just to make sure there's no flash or anything. I'm going to bloody well cough again, I can't believe this. Okay, something else is worth noticing. There was a slight raised edge along this line here. There was a raised edge, so bear that in mind. Now then, I'm using Tamiya Extra Thin to build my model. I'm not using the chewed glue. I would seriously suggest that even if you only intend to build 3 or 4 models, go and get yourself a jar of Tamiya Extra Thin. You can get it from brooksmodels.com. And it's so much better, purely for the way you can apply it, and you can use it to make your sprue goo. So what I'm going to do is brush some on here. Now it's a fairly warm day, so it will dry very, very quickly. But what I want to do is just get some on there, just enough to tack that together so that I don't have to touch it again. Okay, so I get those pins to line up. There we go. So now that can go together, and that should stay together. And then what I can do, the beauty of this cement, okay, and here's a Phil Flory technique for you. I like to give credit where it's due, where I've learned things. So with this fin going together, we have a leading edge here, and that's where the seam is, and I want to get cement to go into that seam and glue it together. Now the risk is, if I come in with this brush and go like that and I move, I'm going to drip glue down the side of it. So if I turn it upside down, okay, and then use the brush, the side of the brush, and wick the cement into that gap, like so. Say this is a Phil Flory trick. Then you can get a very neat seam without having glue everywhere. Now what I'm going to do is give this a squeeze and make sure it's all gone together. And then I'm just going to give it one more going over, just to make sure we've got some cement in that joint, and that'll be that all glued together nicely. Now then, coming down to the top of here, on the top of the fin, we have this air intake. Okay, so that's going in there like that. So we just give that a squeeze, and then what we can do is grab a couple of little plastic clothes pegs. So we'll put one on there. In fact, that's not going to stay, is it, if I put that on there like that? There we go, that'll hold like that. And then we can put a couple of clothes pegs on the fin itself, and that will help it all stay together. Now I'm going to show you something else now which you'll love about this liquid cement. This is why it works so well. If you notice, we've got a line here, and this is our seam. So this seam is where the glue needs to be. Now how pretty it looks on this side doesn't really matter because we've got a hump going over it, but basically this is how this glue works so well. And I'm going to try and show you. I'm not sure if the camera's going to pick it up. I'm going to hold it nice and close. Okay, now you can see that we have a very small gap. So I'm going to get a great big dollop of glue on the brush. I'm going to see if it goes along. Watch. Do you see that? See it chase along? If I squeeze it, you'll see the glue oozing out. See the shiny bit? You can see it. All I've done is put a drop of glue there, but it's gone all the way along. And this is what makes it really easy for you to get lovely tidy joints on your model. So if I just put 3 drops in there, you can see when I squeeze it, you can see it's shiny. The glue has gone all the way along. And when you look from the other side, you can see that joint is perfect. So you can imagine if we did have to have this, you could sand that beautiful. You haven't got any big glue marks, you haven't got anything oozing out. If you want to, just to be sure, you can come in from this side as well. Just put a couple of drops in. Okay, just to make sure. Now it's okay with having extra thin. This is the other beauty of using this glue. You can see, what I'll do is I'll put a drop here on the front. Watch this, I'll put a drop there. So you can see there we've got a puddle of glue. So you might think, oh no, I've got a Q-tip, I'm going to clean it up. Don't, just leave it, let it dry, just leave it alone, and it will shrink back and it will hardly be noticeable. You can see these areas here where I touch the glue, there's nothing there. Okay, so there we are. And now what we've got to do is get some of our lovely Mr. Hobby orange tape, which is great for assembly. Stick it to that side, pull it across. There we go, pull that down. And then we'll do the same over here. Stick it to that side, pull it across, and that will pull it all together and it can dry. If you notice, I put the tape on after. Never put the tape on first, because what will happen then is the glue will come through the joint and capillary under the tape and ruin the surface of your model. I just put it on after a couple of minutes. The glue is gelled, so it can't capillary anymore. It's too thick to capillary. So I'm going to get these pegs back on here, and we can just leave that to dry. Now the front end, I'm going to glue the top, but I'm not going to glue the bottom. And this is where experience comes in, and if you continue modelling, you will sort of see the same things, you'll see the same issues coming their way. And what I can see coming here is this area here is where the air intake goes and the front of the wing. So I've got 2 parts going in the air intake, we've got 2 parts going in the bottom of the wing and 2 parts in the top of the wing, and they all need to match and blend. So what I'm going to do is leave this bottom end unglued, and then if I need to get it in closer together, I can pull it apart and get a knife in there and scrape it out. If I need to pull it apart, I can pack it out with something to get that perfect fit. So I'm not going to glue the bottom, I'm only going to glue the top. And then what we can do here is come in from the inside and get some cement into there to get a nice strong welded joint. Alright, and then once again I am going to take a clothes peg and clamp that shut. I also want to make sure with my fingernail, I want to make sure it's nice and level. I've just pulled some cement out of there with my fingernail, unfortunately. There we go, so we can clamp that like that. And there we are. Just what I'm doing there, I'm rubbing my finger, what nails I've got, over the joint. How can I show you this? Basically, we use this part of the fuselage. If I rub my finger out over, what I want to feel is a step both ways. So basically, if I rub my fingernail that way and I feel no step, and I rub my fingernail that way and I feel a step, it means this side is higher, because obviously it's higher, making a step. Now with this one, I can feel nothing there. If I come that way, there's a step, so I'm going to push it up. But it doesn't seem to be working. So obviously those pins are pulling it out of line. So in that case, you would normally remove the pins. But in this case, I'm not worried about it because we're going to be covering that with a piece going over the spine. And then just before the glue starts to harden, we're just going to do that check again. You can see I can feel there's a step that way, and there's a step that way. That's what I want. That means it's all even. Okay, and that means the minimum filling, sanding, whatever. And that's especially applicable if you're making torpedoes or bombs or drop tanks or whatever. You really want to be make sure you've got your parts together like this, not like that. Okay, that's looking end on. Alright, the objectives of these videos are to try and give you as a beginner some guidance into what you're looking for to make the best model you can. And you know, a lot of people concentrate on how to use an airbrush or how to do weathering or the correct colour for this, the correct colour for that, and miss out the basic modelling skills, and that's what I'm trying to show you here. And yeah, this is basic. Some will say it's not, but this is basic stuff, how to overcome a problem. Okay. Alright, so moving forward, we can leave that to dry. We'll just put that over there, out of the way, with our wings and everything. Job all done. Now we can look at the instructions and see what's next. B10 and B9 have got to be glued together, so we may as well get them together, and then they can be drying along with those parts while we're waiting. So we've got this is B9. Okay, so we'll cut the sprue gates off, just like we've done with everything else. Okay, and then we'll come along here, and again we'll cut these off, just like so. And then we can remove the excess sprue, just like that. And then I'm also, this tab on the side has got to be cut off as well. Now these can be quite awkward because they've got such a thin contact area. When you try and cut them, they try and snap off. Alright, so now we'll sand these bits. So I'm going to use my knife just to trim a bit off of there first. Again, always cut away from yourself, not like I'm doing here. You will find that all modelers, once they've got a few years experience, they do it this way, which is crazy. Purely because you have more control, but it's not at all safe for a novice. And always remember as well, it's a blunt blade that cuts. A sharp blade will cut through and cut lovely. If I had a blunt blade, I'd be squeezing it, all of a sudden it would go and I'd cut myself. Okay, so we can flip that over, remove that sprue gate from that side. Okay, and then I'm going to have to remove more of that with a knife. Alright, we really want something slimmer to get in there. So what you can do is with this type of thing here, what you can do is cut a strip out of it and make a thin sanding stick. Now I've got a thin sanding stick. This is an icky sticky from Australia. And there we go. Just like that. So that's those cleaned up. Now this is going to go together like that. So as per your instructions, if you're using the tube glue, you will apply the glue in the areas where it's showing yellow, and then you'll put it together. What I'm going to do is, because I'm using Tamiya extra thin, I can pre-assemble it. I need to sand the end of these. These are the little ducts to open up to increase the airflow at low speeds, like when they're on the ground and everything. We've got that horrible sprue gate on the side there. We've got rid of that now. There we go. There we go. And then we're going to glue this together. just like so. So we've got the back end here is fitting inside the tabs, and then the side is sitting on top. So we're going to just grab our extra thin, drop there. You can see that capillary up, drop there. And then here in the middle, we're going to put a drop on the front. That will go down into that joint. And there we are, that's that glued together. The other advantage of Tamiya Extra Thin is it's also quite quick drying. You can get a quick drying version. As a beginner, I wouldn't bother yet, because it's the assembly isn't as strong. However, having said that, if you're doing a Revell kit, a modern Revell kit, it seems that the Tamiya Extra Thin doesn't work very well with their plastic anymore, and you need the Extra Thin quick setting, which is this one here. You can tell it's got a lighter green label and a lighter green cap. So there we go. Right, we're going to quickly test fit that and see how it goes. So that's going to fit into there like that, and that's looking lovely. And you can see now why I've left this unglued here, because when I fit this in, we've got a peg that's going to line up in the middle. Now if you look here, the fit looks lovely, but when I turn it over, I have a bit of a step. No, I don't. I did have her just now. So it looks like it's all going to go together lovely, but I thought I saw a step there earlier. But if I did have a step, I've now got the ability to pull this apart to make it fit beautifully. So there we are. So we're going to let that dry and go from there. Right, back in a minute, and we're back. So this is actually a day or two later now. So the glue's nice and dry, everything's nice and solid, everything's good to go. So what we're going to do now is get this lower section attached to the main fuselage and get it all glued up nice and solid. Now, what I'm not going to do, I'm not going to glue along here, because then if we need to pull this wing down to get a better fit with the upper wing, we can. So what I'm going to do is start at the rear end. So I'm going to get it all fitted up, and we can see straight away that we have a bit of an issue here getting this rear end to go in. It's not pressing right up, so there's something there which is stopping that going up. We've got the same on this side. So what's going on here? It's actually not so bad on the other side. On this side, there's something stopping it going up. So I think what we'll do is just tape it up. We'll just cement it and then tape it up, because what I don't want to start doing is filing away plastic and ending up reducing the thickness of the wing, and then we'll have a nightmare with fitting the other upper wing. And if we make those exhausts go out around, they'll be difficult to fit as well. So I think what I'm going to do is grab my Tamiya Extra Thin, move those parts out of the way. So I'm going to put some Tamiya Extra Thin in there, and I'm going to put some in there. We'll put a drop along here as well, so we get a nice strong weld, and we'll get this all pinched up together. Okay. Actually, we should be able to peg that. If I can grab a couple of closed pegs, we may be able to peg that to keep it closed. No, they're not strong enough. I think these are a bit stronger actually. So it seems to have shifted a little bit to the left, so what we'll do is make sure it's back on centre. And then get that one in there. Grab one of the stronger closed pegs. Nope, that's a weaker one. Oh, it's solenoid. Every one I pick up is a weaker one. There we go. So that's all clamped up, nothing's touching the glue. And we can see on the front here, that's all pretty well lined up as well. But we're just going to leave this back end to dry, let that go solid, and then we'll go from there. Now the other thing we can start to look at is fitting this spine. Now to fit this spine, that goes in, it just goes into the back there, and then it sits down in the cockpit. And as you can see, this is going to give the location for our canopy. So what I've done, I've got my canopy off to see how it fits. And in all honesty, mine, I don't know if it's just mine, it is a terrible fit at the front. It did not want to go down. And what I've had to do is come along and scrape plastic away from here and here. Okay, the actual the combing over that goes inside, because the windscreen was hitting that before it settled down here. So I've scraped all that away, and then I've scraped a little bit more off the base to get it to go down, because I had a massive step at the front here. And then I've sanded a bit off the canopy as well, but we'll cover that when I fit the canopy. But I've realised that this can go as far back as you like. So what we can do here with this one is just a drop of extra thin in there, a drop of extra thin in there. That'll capillary along and that'll sort itself out. We'll put a drop on there and that will capillary in. Okay, you see now this is the beauty of this cement. Now if you're using glue, you'd have to put glue on there, and then when you put it down, if you get it slightly out of line, you'll have a mess. So that's what we're doing here. We're just going to hold that in place like that. Okay, and then I'm going to grab, I've got some tape here on the bench, what I've been using for something else, so I'm just going to grab a couple of pieces like that. And what we're going to do, we can just remove most of the glue from the brush and just brush along there like so. And then we'll do the same on the other side. As long as you keep moving, make sure there's no debris in there. Just keep moving, stay on the joint, don't come away, just like that. And then we can put a bit of tape on just to hold it down. It doesn't need much because it sits there pretty much on its own. And there we are. That's that. So we put another piece on the back if you want to, just to help hold it down. Oops. Okay, so we'll leave that now. I'm going to move that peg away slightly so that this one will stay on there. What I need to do actually is cut. Where are my big cutters? Here they are. What I'm going to do is cut away some of that nose. And I'm going to cut away some of that nose there. Come on. And that'll allow them to sit closer together without pushing each other off. There we go, that's better, look. See? Not only am I showing you how to build a model, I'm showing you how to modify your tools as well. Alright, so we're going to let all that dry. There's a lot of time drying, but that's what modelling is all about. It's about patience, and it's sometimes best to have more than one project on the go at a time, so you don't have to keep waiting around for things to dry all the time. Okay, so I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so that's been a little while. It's pretty much dry. I'm going to leave the pegs on there. I'm going to leave this overnight, I think, because if I take that off, it's going to spring apart. What I'm going to do here, we've got the front nicely aligned. So I'm going to grab, will these pegs be big enough? That's good, isn't it? Bloody great day today with bloody clothes pegs, isn't it? Right, so they're not going to be good enough. So we're going to have to resort to an elastic band, but we're going to be very careful. There's a little antenna on the bottom there, and I don't want to snap that off. So what we'll do is we'll get this elastic band over the fuselage, like so. Now there's a little antenna here I don't want to snap off. There's also one there I didn't want to snap off. So over the top like that, hold it back away from that antenna, and then let it roll up here. There we go, and that will, whoops, that should stay in position there. Okay, now you can see here the problem is where we want to glue, the elastic band is there. Okay, so there is a way around that, and what you do is you grab a cocktail stick or two and you put those underneath the rubber band either side of the joint. So grab another couple. There we go, just wanted 3, so that's cool. So grab another one there and slide that into there, and now you can see, oh, it's not quite worked. We need something fatter on the top. So how about another fat cocktail stick? There we go. If we just glue that front edge, we should be fine. So I'll try and grab another couple of fat ones. There we go, there's 2 fat ones there. So one in there, one in there, that's not doing anything. So what we'll do then, it's great this, isn't it? It's like live TV, you can watch it all go wrong as well, because I tried to show you when I do stuff wrong as well. Okay, so we'll pull that rubber band back there and just do that leading edge as well. And as you can see, we have a nice joint there, and we'll just check. We've got our intake here, how's that going to fit? That's going to go on lovely, look, no gaps or anything anywhere. So what I'm going to do, get that bag out of the way, go away! And I'm just going to put a drop of cement in here, just in there. I don't want too much, because if I flood it in there, it'll run up the joint and capillary onto that elastic band. The elastic band will pull away and that'll be it, it'll be over. So there we are, that'll be enough to hold that in position. Notice I haven't glued anything else, just the back end and the front end, and then we're able to manipulate it and move it as we want to get the desired fit. All right. Let's put that down in that missile cutout. Helps us see things a bit better. There we are. Right, I'm going to call that a day for part 3, and I will see you back in part 4. As I say, have a look at your kit, see how it fits around here. You know, just be mindful of that when you start sanding away the canopy, because of its shape, as you sand it, it's going to get narrower, and as you cut this, it's going to get wider. So be very careful. Don't just think you're going to get away with sanding everything off the canopy to make it fit, because you'll end up with it not fitting in there at all. It's just a case of trial and error, really. It is definitely not a beginner thing. So if you are a beginner, I'm afraid you're just going to have to put up with having a poor fitting canopy at the front end. It may just be my kit, of course. It may be that the others are fine. I looked on the artwork, on the Airfix artwork on the website. It looks absolutely fine. So it's probably just my kit. It's probably a bit of distortion somewhere. So I will see you all back for part 4, and hopefully we can get the build pretty much, the main frame anyway, finished, and we've got some painting in there to do before we think about putting the canopy on. We've also got to get the seat done, and I'm also going to show you in part 4 about filling, because obviously we've got a big line around here we want to get rid of. We've got a seam down here we want to get rid of, so we'll go down there. Okay, I'll see you all soon. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.